Oh. Hello. Hi. Good to see you. You too. You actually tell me? It's like, you're right. I'm so excited. I was like, oh my god. I don't know, these are so cool.
Can you do me a favor, Miss Tanya? How are you?
What is your name?
Tanya.
Hi, Tanya. Can you just stand in this area so I can see if the camera is getting a good angle? I guess it seems pretty good. Like if you just walk side to side, just make sure you're not like totally out of the. Yeah, that's not too bad. Okay.
It's a bit of a quarter side profile.
That's okay. Thank you. Long day. So you got school all day too.
Yeah.
Wowzers.
A lot. Yeah. Is this the passion one? I hope it really like changes mentally. Okay. This is really pressure. Okay. Not passionate. Okay. Yes, you do. You do. I don't know if you say anything. No, I don't know. Gosh. No, you do. You recognize your birthday. I don't know on the last book. Oh, okay.
Hi, come on in.
Are you George again? Yes, I've done all my oratory speeches in this room.
Good. Makes it easy.
I'm so comfortable in this room.
That's great.
Can I show
So
you?
just so you know, it's Laura, Zui, then the question.
Yeah.
Okay. We can start if you want, but we do have 2 more minutes till we officially start. So I don't know if you'd rather just get it over with because you're nervous and want to just get going, or if you want those last 2 minutes to kind of think through, figure it out. You're more than welcome to take those 2 minutes. So.
I don't mind at all.
No, I'll start later.
How are you feeling?
Anything?
Yeah. Ready to just sort of go?
Yeah, just get
All
it.
right, I don't blame you. It's been a long day. By this point, it's your 3rd time around, so you're probably a little bit more comfortable. The timer is over here, and it's the countdown because it's probably 1. Everyone's probably quite familiar with that. And you feel free to move in this space that you have. We weren't going to move the tables. I think this is probably enough space for everyone. Perfect. Is that right? From what I know of the speeches, this is enough space for everyone.
Yay!
Perfect. Okay, Laura, take it away.
What is your passion? As a kid, my answer to this question changed every day. One day it was dolphins, the next turtles, and maybe in a month's time it would be dancing. Nowadays, my answer to this question is a little different. I usually can't come up with an answer at all, no matter how many times it's asked. We are constantly under fire. Go to a university that offers something you're passionate about. The only way to feel fulfilled in your career is to work for something you're passionate about. Passion this, passion that. If you do a quick search on Google on just the word passion, you get no less than 2 billion hits. But does anyone know what passion means? What it implies? Passion seems to have become the go-to answer for almost anything. Take this, for example. I was asking around for some ideas I could write a speech about. The answer I got was astonishing. I was told to write something I was passionate about, which is exactly what I did. I wonder, why do we constantly have to be on the lookout? We spend so much time looking and not enough time simply living. Chase your passion. Countless times I've heard this advice dished out by relatives as motivation. After their persistent interrogations about universities, I tend to give them a blank stare. I'm usually thinking about which way I'm going to answer their question. I could go 2 ways. First, I could give them the answer they want, list some pretty well-recognized universities, even throw in a few Ivy Leagues to really impress them. Or I could be brutally honest and give them no answer at all, which I usually choose to do. And it's followed, just like clockwork, by the very original advice involving, you guessed it, passion. Is this advice really as inspiring as it seems on Pinterest boards? The answer is no. If you take this advice literally, it makes it seem like there is only one passion to find. This results in a more closed mindset, making it harder for you to stay motivated and keep your eye out. Because you were led to believe that finding a passion would be a simple chase and grab. According to Stanford researchers in 2017, this advice could even make you less successful. In a study, they gathered over 400 students who were interested in a variety of topics, including history, science, STEM, and the arts. These students were given materials such as videos and papers on the varying subjects. Students who were deeply passionate about one subject were unable to finish the rest of the material. In this scenario, their passion was a distraction. If you live with the mentality that there's just one mold made for you, this makes it harder for yourself to keep your eye out for potential interests when you believe you found the one. Perhaps I want to submerge myself in the world of business, but that doesn't mean I have to stop thinking about journalism. Passions are restricting us from exploring different interests. So why are they still enforced by our social circles? The reason is passions are seen as points of stability in the whirlwind we refer to as life. We're all in a hurry to find a passion that we believe will automatically arrange our future and clear all our confusion. As surprising as it sounds, it just doesn't work that way. According to the Journal of Vocational Behavior in 2007, this hunt for your one true calling only results in higher numbers of students who are feeling lost and confused. Students are left gasping for air as they are submerged in a world of decisions they seem to have no control over. As a 16-year-old student, I am expected to responsibly and accurately take my APs for next year. I have to choose what I feel passionate about, what I want to prioritize, and how to polish my school record to be fished out by a great university. But it's a lot more complicated than simply checking a box in a course selection survey. Humans are continuously changing. I know that because the person I am today would not recognize the one I was last year or the year before that. The teenage years are not a place for stability or rationality. In fact, according to the University of Rochester's Medical Center, the prefrontal cortex, the area in the brain responsible for making these rational decisions, does not fully develop until the age of 25. So finding a passion may seem like a solution, but it's really a puzzle, an extremely difficult puzzle with missing pieces. There is no solution to this enigma, no matter how bad we need that point of stability. In the world of business, failure is common. In the world of passion, it's taboo. The idea surrounding passion makes it seem that passion can only be a success. This summer, I took an entrepreneurship course at a university and found out that 90% of all startups fail. A similar article dating back to 2018 on Harvard Business Review highlights the importance of failure for well-known companies like Google. The business strategy, intelligent fast failure, mimics exactly what failure can do to help people succeed. The strategy involves companies releasing an unfinished product to the market so it can fail early on. This way, companies can make adjustments tailored from the feedback of their target audience without investing too much money. The more they fail, the more feedback they receive, and the more likely they'll be able to create a successful product for the market. If we step away from the idea that passion is your winning lottery ticket, we can use intelligent fast failure to explore different interests, knowing they might fail. I guess if you were to ask yourselves, what is my passion? You'd first have to ask yourself, what is a passion? I can tell you what it's not. A passion is not something that you think can be safe or reliable for the future. It's not something that's profitable or held in high esteem. And it's not something that will make you feel like an adequate child for your parents to brag about over brunch. Because as parents, they'll always find an excuse to brag about you. A passion does not need to be defined. And it certainly doesn't have to be singular. We all deserve to give ourselves a break from the pressure that pushes us to find it. Unfortunately, your passion won't occur to you in a giant illuminated neon sign. But perhaps one day you may find a small sticky note with an interest that's calling your name. It'll be followed by another and another one after that. It's your choice if you let them pile up or leaf through them one by one. Thank you.
That's really good. So much good.
Okay. When you get your ballot back, it's going to be messy, but
It's okay. Don't mind. Thank you.
okay. All right, so you're up. How are you ready? Great. Sure.
Imagine you are visiting a prison. Here you meet a 16-year-old girl in a dark cell the size of a bathroom, with self-mutilating cuts on her hands. She's depressed and isolated. She should be in school. She should be learning from her delinquent actions rather than undergoing depression. So when you think of your childhood, do you remember playing with your friends? Or do you think of a windowless cell with metal bars? Juvenile delinquency is a cry for help. Juvenile delinquents should definitely answer for their actions, but in a way that doesn't impair their chance of reforming. Our youth are the hope of our future. Hence, we need to ensure the rehabilitation of juvenile delinquents. We need to understand the risk factors that lead youth to delinquency, why each juvenile delinquency case is different, and why juveniles must not be treated as adults. This will help us realize why prevention, alternative sanctions, and rehabilitation programs are more effective solutions than harsh incarceration. What is juvenile delinquency? Juvenile delinquency is a term for any unlawful act committed or participated in by a minor. Unfortunately, the meaning of juvenile crime and the age until which a person is considered a juvenile varies from region to region. Juvenile delinquency facilities focus on the rehabilitation of juvenile delinquents rather than conviction. In 1977, when the number of juvenile delinquency cases in the US peaked, legislators created harsher laws, allowing more minors to be tried as adults. In spite of a drastic 44% decrease in the number of juvenile delinquency cases, reforms to return the juvenile justice system back to the original intentions are not being implemented swiftly. So why do adolescents become delinquents? One of the major risk factors is social circumstances, like isolation, poor parenting, immoral mentorship, and bad company. Another one is environmental conditions, like poverty and exposure to violent or inappropriate media. The third one is the physiology and mental health of kids. Per MRI studies, the frontal cortex, which controls reasoning, unlike adults, is not fully developed in an adolescent. resulting in impulsive decisions in emotionally stressful situations. Also, teenagers are easily swayed by temptation and are prone to riskier behavior. Therefore, prosecutors should not treat juveniles as adults, and they should take into account every delinquent's circumstances when penalizing the juvenile. When we incarcerate these juveniles, what happens to them? A common problem around the globe: insufficiently equipped detention centers and sexual violence against young inmates. More than a third of U.S. detention centers lack sufficient amenities and developmental programs for juvenile occupants. Also, a fifth of sexual violence victims in prisons were adolescents because they were not separated from adults. At the same time, solitary confinement exacerbates a juvenile's mental and physical health, affecting the development of their moral compass. The permanent record that children receive in adult jails limits future education and employment opportunities. Juveniles placed in the U.S. adult correction system are 34% more likely to recidivate than their counterparts in the juvenile system. Why? Because kids, unlike adults, don't reflect on their actions during jail time. Thus, harsh incarceration in a retributive justice system is neither an ethical nor an economically viable solution for delinquency. So what are some solutions to help these juvenile delinquents? Circumstances, actions, beliefs, and mental health issues of a juvenile often go unrecognized by the adults around them. Families and societies must have a safe environment for adolescents with two-way communication. Parent management training and home environment evaluations can ensure the non-abusive yet firm juvenile supervision. A community-based service strategy, the multifaceted wraparound program, has seen success in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Here, local authorities, family members, and the juvenile jointly create a development plan. Relying on data about health and performance before and during incarceration, this program enables early intervention. It promotes rehabilitation by giving preference to sanctions like house arrest and juvenile detention, which provide the juvenile with a humane environment of communication and interaction. But do these juvenile correction solutions work? Yes, they do. Of the many examples, 15-year-old Jason Wang, convicted of armed robbery and hustling. At the Texas Youth Commission Juvenile Facility, Jason was motivated to receive his GED and pursue a master's in science and business finance. Now a successful entrepreneur, he connects previously arraigned juvenile delinquents with successful business executives, helping them to ameliorate their future. While the 12-year sentence held Jason accountable for his actions, the supportive programs helped him transform his life and that of other juveniles. I'm not saying that these juvenile delinquents shouldn't be punished for their actions. I am saying that punishment should not limit their success. For a safe community and a promising future, let's prevent juvenile crime and promote the rehabilitation of juvenile delinquents. After all, John Malloy once said, "Hurt people, hurt people. Heal people, heal people." Thank you.
That's so good.
Okay. Good. So if you want to take off your tag, you can. Because I know.
I think it's a distraction, but sure.
Perfect.
Of course.
It happens.
You ready?
Okay. Close your eyes. Imagine that one quiet person you've always thought to be an introvert. Now put them in a suit in the center of a stage, donning the role of the leader. Isn't it odd, awkward, counterintuitive even? Well, you're not alone in thinking so. So what does come to mind when you think of a leader? Is it the CEO who exudes his presence into every room he walks in?
or to the dynamic, persuasive world leader who dominates your evening news? Well, our culture and society, specifically in business and politics, seems to adore this idea of a confident and charismatic leader who is able to emanate confidence and decisively lead a band of starstruck followers. And this stereotypical view of an extroverted individual has been associated with our perception of a leader for as long as we can remember. And it's this very thought that discourages many from stepping up to the plate. So the question that needs to be asked now, more than ever, is if being an introvert is the one thing that makes or breaks who our leaders can or cannot be. So introverts, the type of people who prefer to be alone with their thoughts, get their energy from solitude, quiet but creative, and think before they speak. No number of phrases can truly sum up around 40% of our global population, but in a nutshell, that is what an introvert is. And what shouldn't be so surprising is that they can be leaders too. But aren't introverts simply too shy and reserved to be standing up and making the decisions important for when you are a leader? Well, that's where we may have all gotten the wrong idea. It's quite simple. Introverts, unlike extroverts, when tasked with a problem, react consciously by thinking first and then acting. In a study conducted by Rihanna Khalil, a notable psychologist from Qasim University, Saudi Arabia, found that in a pool of 370 people categorized as either introverted or extroverted, almost 3/4 of extroverts depended on someone to steer them in the right direction, whilst more than 3/4 of introverts rely solely on their intuitions, inner feelings, and reactions while taking decisions. We've all been the party to the effects of poor and hasty decision making, and many times the decisions that our leaders take govern the very ways in which we live. Now, before I continue, picture a little girl raised in a family of blaring and charismatic socialites, but just feeling invisible. Imagine being written off as that girl who wants to sit in the back seat, when really the front wheel is her dream. Well, that's what it's like growing up as an introvert, aspiring to be a leader in today's world, and I can attest to that. But aren't introverts like you and her and other introverts simply too shy and reserved to be actually getting up and making the connections and relationships important for when you are a leader? Well, it is true that introverts can seem disconnected, unable, or unwilling to build personal connections with their employees and clients. But in reality, the connections that introverts build just happen to be focused on different priorities. While they may not be openly conversational and may seem slightly closed off in large groups and crowded settings, introverts are actually excellent at relationship building. How? Well, they believe in genuine relationship building by understanding the needs of the clients and the customers. This allows them to be more in tune with each and every member of the team, every demand and need of the client, and what exactly the public's interests may be. But given the dominant and dynamic natural traits that extroverts possess, aren't they the ones naturally fit for the job? Well, not only is that belief incorrect, it doesn't present the whole picture. In a study conducted by Yale's Department of Psychology, of 57 store managers of a national pizza chain in the United States of America, stores managed by introverts yielded a 14% higher weekly profit than those by extroverts. The same pattern was repeated in an experimental study wherein college students were participating in a t-shirt folding competition. Participants were 28% more proactive under an introverted leader than an extroverted one. But that begs the question of how. Well, researchers suggest that introverts are more likely to let proactive and enthusiastic employees run with their ideas, whereas extroverted leaders may feel slightly threatened. But why does any of this really matter? It's because in the real world, introverts aren't given the same playing field. Organizations and companies have been proven to likely hire individuals who are assertive, go-getting, and able to seize the day. But this ostracizes many from the table, and oftentimes the best candidate may not get the role. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying extroverts shouldn't be leaders, but we as a society have programmed introverts into thinking that they'll never make it in a cutthroat world, that they'll never matter, and they'll always be invisible compared to their extroverted counterpart. But that's just cataloging real people into two polar opposite binaries of personality traits. But in reality, the world isn't that black and white. So the solution? It's simple. Change the system. Schools from an early age must provide leadership programs that do not base merit solely on the loudest and most confident speaker, but rather the one who is able to manage a team and manage them well. From there, organizations such as universities, companies, and institutions must look at leadership to be a more versatile characteristic in a human being, rather than just pinnacle it down to a narrow definition derived from an age-old stereotype. Now remember that little girl? Well, she grew up to be one of the pioneers of the second wave of feminism, the leader who championed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the woman who single-handedly transformed the role of what it meant to be not just the First Lady of the United States of America, but also what it meant to be an introverted woman in a man's world. And her name is Anna Eleanor Roosevelt, the introvert who wouldn't keep quiet. From a young age, she was told persistently that she would never make it as a leader, and she'd never matter compared to the people around her. But every action, every decision, and every living breath that she took defied that very belief. And knowing that on the other end of the TV may be sitting another quiet little kid, looking to defy the norms of what it meant to be an introverted leader, she once famously said, "You must do the thing you think you cannot do." Thank you.
Wow. Thanks for the challenge of judging that. Super cool topics. Love seeing it.
Yeah, I've got to figure this one out. This is a tough one. So thank you. Off you go. We're pretty much done.
Yeah.
So
We have a lot of free time.
yeah, the other rounds are finishing up. I mean, we obviously are a smaller batch here, so I know the end is about 7 o'clock tonight. So maybe start gathering your things up.
Yeah.
Have a chance to talk with each other.
Yeah.
You know, hang out. So
Thank you.
thanks. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I love all these topics.
How are you gonna get into school tomorrow? You forgot your pass.
Just got it. And let Johnny know
I don't know.
that Mr. Mo found her tag and she would need to pick it up from probably the officer from the end.
She's in
She's in it around right now, but I got a message. So, okay, thank you.
Miss. Bye.
Bye, girls. Thanks for all your hard work.
No, not here either, because I have to after here is for the learning comment.